Good afternoon and welcome. This is Andy Booth from Governance Services. Under agenda item 1, Councillor Hutchison was appointed as chair prior to the meeting. Could I just ask members present if they're agreeable to this? Yes.
Yes.
Right, thank you. So that's Councillor Hutchison formally appointed as chair for the hearing.
Thanks, Andy. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this remote hearing of the Licensing Subcommittee. My name is Councillor Andrew Hutchison. I'll be chairing today's hearing. Before I proceed further, could I remind everybody that today's meeting is being streamed live on the City Council's YouTube channel. And could I ask following members of the subcommittee to introduce themselves, please? We have Councillor Garner.
Thanks, Andy. Ben Garner, Councillor for Ardsley and Robin Hood Ward.
Thanks, Councillor Garner. And Councillor Knight.
Hi there, it's Councillor Christine Knight for Wheatwood Ward.
Thank you. I'd like to start the hearing today by confirming that this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee meets the requirements of the Council's constitution, even though members of the panel are in remote attendance. While items today will be fully discussed as is usual, remote attendance requires a few slight changes as to how we will manage the debate. Therefore, can I ask that all attendees mute their microphones unless I invite them to speak? This will avoid disruption from background noise. Can all participants please keep their cameras on during the hearing? And all participants will be invited to introduce themselves at the start of the hearing to make it clear to the public observers who will be involved in the proceedings. I just ask for your assistance and patience while I go through this process. Could I now invite officers to introduce themselves and mute your microphone once you have introduced yourself? I'll start with Rob Brown from Legal Services.
Yes, my name is Robert Brown. I'm a solicitor in Leeds City Council's Legal Services, and I'm the legal advisor to the subcommittee this afternoon.
Thanks, Rob. We've got Matthew Nelson from Entertainment Licensing.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Matthew Nelson from Entertainment Licensing.
Thanks, Matthew. Andy Booth, Governance Services.
Yeah, good afternoon. Andy Booth from Governance Services. I'll be the clerk to the subcommittee this afternoon.
Thanks, Andy. And could I also then ask the applicants and their representatives to introduce themselves? I have Aaron Meller, the applicant from Tokyo Industries.
Hi, I'm Aaron Meller, the Managing Director of Tokyo Industries. We operate 45 licensed sites around the UK and 7 international, including Whiskey Down in Leeds, the subject of today's application.
Thanks, Aaron. And then I believe we've got Marcus Bentley representing the applicant.
Yeah, hello, my name is Marcus. I'm the General Manager of Whiskey Down in Leeds.
Thanks, Marcus. I will pass over to the clerk, Andy. You're on mute, Andy.
Right, sorry about that. A few technical problems here. Agenda item number 2, we've got no appeals against the refusal of inspection of documents. Under agenda item number 3, there's no exempt information on today's agenda. Under agenda item number 4, we've not got any late items of business. And under agenda item number 5, could I ask members if they have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare?
None from myself.
No, none.
Right, back to you, Chair.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, so agenda item number 6 is the application for the renewal of a sex establishment license for Whiskey Down, which is the first and second floors of 25 Crown Street in Leeds. Could the legal advisor to the subcommittee outline the procedure for today's hearing, please, Rob?
Thank you. Yes, this is an application for the renewal of a sex establishment licence made by Tokyo Industries Ultimate Limited in respect of the premises known as Whiskey Down at first and second floors, 25 Crown Street, Leeds. The licence is for the provision of sexual entertainment in the form of lap dancing. Our usual procedure for such applications is that the applicant addresses the committee first. Other parties, whether in support or in opposition, would then address the committee, and then the applicant has the chance to respond to anything said by the other parties. As I understand it, there are no objections to this renewal application, either by any of the responsible authorities or by any other person. In making its determination, the overriding principle will be that each application will be determined on its own merits, taking into account local knowledge, the licensing policy, and the guidance issued by the Home Office. Where it is necessary to depart from the guidance or the policy, the subcommittee will give clear and cogent reasons for doing so. The regulations permit the subcommittee to set a time limit upon presentations, providing the same time limit is applied to all parties. Our usual time limit is 15 minutes per party. Applicants can split their allocation between an initial presentation and then a summing up at the end after any questions from members. In this case, however, there are no other parties and you may wish to make your presentation in one go. Could I ask the applicant which they would prefer?
Happy to do that in one go, really.
Okay. Can I ask the subcommittee if they wish to impose a 15-minute time limit or any other different time limit?
I think it will be substantially less than that. It's a very quick introduction.
Okay. In that case, if the chair is happy, then a time limit of 15 minutes will apply.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Okay. After your presentation, the subcommittee members may wish to ask questions. The time for questions to be asked and answered is in addition to the time limit set for your presentation. Parties may request permission to call witnesses. Can I ask you if you have any wish to call any witnesses today?
We have no requirement to call witnesses. Attending with me is Marcus Bentley, the DPS and General Manager, and Paul Sinclair, the Area Ops Director for this area.
Okay, thank you. All documents that have been submitted have been copied and circulated to the subcommittee in advance of today's hearing. Can I just confirm that you all have the same pack with the agenda report to the subcommittee concerning the application with appendices and comprising, I think it is 72 pages? Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. It would be helpful when referring to documents to identify which document you're referring to by the page number. Please note your presentation is your opportunity to address the subcommittee. So you need to make sure that you've included in your presentation everything that you wish to say and to have taken into account. After your presentation and after any questions from members, the subcommittee will consider whether they have all the information they require to make a decision. Once this point is reached, members of the committee will go into a private session. If members have any additional questions to ask, they will return to the meeting to ask those questions. They will then return to private session to make their decision. All the parties will be informed once the hearing is ended and will be advised of the decision in writing within 5 working days of today. Can all parties please remain in the meeting until they're asked to leave? And just finally, can I ask if there are any questions about the procedure that we're proposing to follow today?
No questions from the applicant, sir.
Thank you. If we can hand back to the chair.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Could I pass now to the licensing officer, Matthew, to present the application, please?
Yeah, of course, Chair, thank you. So this afternoon, members are required to consider the application for the renewal of a sex establishment licence to authorise the activity of sexual entertainment in the form of lap dancing. The application is made by Tokyo Industries Limited, and the application is for the premises known as Whiskey Down over the first and second floors of 25 Crown Street, Leeds, LS2. Plans of the premises have been circulated in advance of the meeting. The hours of operation are 10 p.m. until 4 a.m. Sunday to Thursday, and then 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. Friday and Saturday. This is in line with the hours that are currently permitted on the existing licence. Members' attention is drawn to a copy of the application that can be found at Appendix B on page 23 of the report, and members will also find attached at page 35, Appendix C, additional documents supplied with the application. These include the Dancers Welfare Policy, Dancers Code of Conduct, Customers Code of Conduct, Pricing Policy, and the Trade Union details. A consideration for members is the external appearance and all methods of advertising. These can be found at Appendix D on page 61 of the report. Here you will find images showing the external appearance of the premises. However, on this occasion, the applicant has not provided any advertising / promotional material. So should the application to renew the license be successful, the operator will only be allowed to promote their business using advertising material that has previously been approved by a past licensing subcommittee. As the legal advisor mentioned, the application has not attracted any representations whatsoever. And the current statement of licensing policy for sex establishments states that the appropriate number of sexual entertainment venues in the city centre is a maximum of 4, and providing these premises are not near properties with sensitive uses or in sensitive locations. A list of the sensitive premises and the sensitive locations as determined by the policy can be viewed at points 6.3 and 6.4 of the report. To help further assist members, we have identified sensitive premises within the area and produce an additional map which is attached to Appendix F on page 65 of the report. And then finally, the standard conditions are set out in the current policy may be found at Appendix G on page 67 of the report. That, Chair, is the application. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Matthew. Okay, so we'll go straight on to, if I can invite the applicant to present their case. Over to you, Aaron.
The application, sir, is very straightforward. It's essentially a renewal of an existing SCV license. We've operated this site at Whiskey Down now for 3 years and have been through 2 successful renewals. Nothing has changed in terms of the operation, in terms of operating hours, layout, or marketing. So essentially, it's just a straightforward renewal of the previous license. This is required every 12 months under Leeds SCV policy. And that essentially is the entire application.
Okay, thanks. You obviously didn't need the 15 minutes, I guess. Okay, I go to the subcommittee members if anybody has any questions.
I do have a number of questions.
Okay, if you want to fire away, Councillor Knight.
Okay. Could I ask, first of all, what the applicant is doing to promote equal opportunities within the club, both in terms of staff and the people who were the customers?
So we have an equal opportunities policy throughout Tokyo Industries, which is extended to Whiskey Down. We do have both male and female employees and staff at the site in Leeds. In terms of the customer attraction, we do openly advertise that we are certainly female welcoming, and we've staged events for female only audience as well as male audiences. We also kind of do burlesque performances that also attract a wider audience, and we've tried to kind of promote the fact that it's a very much an open policy for Whiskey Down.
Thank you. I mean, that's really, really good to hear that you are promoting female audiences as well. And just one of the things that prompted me to ask that was some of the terminologies that's used, both in the way that your club's described. It's described as a gentleman's club, which kind of sounds like it's exclusive to men. And also some of the wording of some of your documentation. For example, I think it's on page 44 of the report. There's the reference to the word he as the customer. It's always the customer is always referred to as he, and your dancers in one I think it's point 10 on page 51 are referred to as girls, which is also suggesting that the dancers are of one particular sex, but also the word girls is suggests female child, really, that terminology. So I have a little bit of an issue with that. If you want to respond to that first of all before I go on to further questions.
It's a super interesting point, actually. With the original, we didn't include the words gentleman's club in the original application and the first application when we made for Whiskey Down, and we didn't want it to be called a gentleman's club because of the stereotype that's associated with gentlemen's clubs. It was actually members of this licensing committee or the licensing committee who sat at the time that insisted we called it a gentleman's club so that people wouldn't be confused if they were to enter and then there was nudity. So that's kind of a different paradigm to what we were originally told. Well,
Right.
originally we called it this a Superlux Whiskey Lounge, and we didn't want to call it a gentleman's club. We would prefer not to call it a gentleman's club, because I do believe that's a very dated word for the style of operation that we're doing, and we're not gentlemen exclusive by any means stretch of the imagination. So I would very much like the ability to not call it a gentleman's club, if I'm being honest, but it was members of this committee that insisted it was called a gentleman's club on our first application. So that has just followed through from that.
Thank you.
In terms of the policy documents, if that word is used, I will make sure that's corrected, and it should always say performers, not girls or ladies.
Thank you. And your customers could be referred to as they rather than he.
Absolutely.
Perhaps. Yeah. Thank you.
We very much welcome female attendances at the premises, and it's very much part we do, and we do have many females and couples that do attend.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I've one or two other questions. Is that all right for me, Chair, to ask my other questions now? Or
Yeah, sure. You carry on, Councillor Knight. Okay,
thank you. I noticed as well in one of, I think it's the agreement of conduct, and it's on page 37 of the report, paragraph 30, that there is some fining of dancers, and I think I just wondered why that was in there, because I think that's contrary to our policy.
I don't think that exists, but I'll pass you over to Marcus, who's the general manager and DPS of the site, and Paul, who's the operations director, who wrote these policies.
Okay.
Right, no, so, well, since I've been there and previous to that, I believe no dancer has been fined at all. I can't say why that's there.
It's paragraph 30 in the agreement of conduct. It's on page 37 of the report, so maybe that needs removing then.
Definitely double check that.
I think it references fines if they are found to be bringing their own alcohol into the premises.
That's
where
correct.
The fine comes into it.
That's right.
Sorry, I missed. I missed that. So it broke up a little bit when you said the last part.
So the paragraph that we're referring to, or that Councillor Knight is referring to, is if a dancer is found to have brought their own alcohol into the premises, they'll be fined. That's where I think the fine bit comes under.
Right, now, I think that's probably just something that's from old, trying to dissuade anybody from bringing alcohol in so that we can monitor everybody's alcohol consumption from performer to customer. Obviously, if they bring their own alcohol in, then we have no control over what they're consuming. So it was kind of, I think it's probably something that was put into it, trying to avoid that. But it's certainly not something that's financially fined.
So perhaps
we've done.
We're certainly happy to remove that and replace that performers should not be allowed to bring in their own alcohol. That way, any consumption of alcohol on premises is regulated under our premises license.
Yeah, because there are other ways of dealing with that misdemeanor, aren't there, than fining?
Absolutely. I think this is probably a historic thing that's been taken from an aged guidance policy. Sorry.
Thank you. Could I also ask what training is given to staff? I've seen some documentation regarding training, but it seems to just refer to reviewing and watching performance and reviewing, but it doesn't actually seem to say what training is actually given. So if you could expand on that for us, please.
Sorry, is that to me? Right. Sorry, are we talking performer or sort of bar teams and such like?
Both really.
Well, so the bar teams are given full training from, the likes of weights and measures through training to product knowledge, to spotting drugs, to spotting drunks and the rest, how to deal with all of that, any situation that's put upon them. We also have security that will help us out with that as well if we have issues. The performers are given an experienced performer to work with, also code of conduct, so that we can get kind of uniformity in what the girls are allowed or not allowed to do, and so that they can. We also have a house mum that monitors that on a daily, weekly, monthly occurrence, so that they can make sure that the girls adhere to the rules, both from the council and our own.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's actually more the more detail there than what's in the documentation you presented. So that perhaps the documentation you presented doesn't do you justice really in terms of the training that's being provided. So that might be worth just re-looking at. And my final question was in relation to the advertising of the club on your Twitter account, because whilst the website and the building itself are the advertising is very innocuous, if you like, the Twitter account I think is much more suggestive with some of the images that are on there. I wondered if you had any comments about that.
From my point of view, the Twitter account, sorry, I don't have a Twitter account. Facebook, Instagram.
Whiskey Down, when you just type in Whiskey Down, you can easily find the Whiskey Down Twitter account for Leeds, and you would easily come across it even if you weren't looking for a lap dancing club, I suppose is my point.
I manage the Instagram and the Facebook accounts where we use images that go from maybe you could say suggestive images of girls but clothed or covered over. We also use pictures of the building. We also use pictures of drinks, all black and white, all quite.
So who manages the Twitter account? Because it's definitely there.
The Twitter account is just an echo from Instagram. With Instagram and Twitter, when you're able to see that page, it's restricted as an adult page. So you have to be over 18 in order to see that. If a child tries to find the Twitter page, it won't show up on their Twitter feeds. So Instagram and Twitter are naturally adult curated. And I think Facebook is the same because we list ourselves as an adult content site.
Right. I mean, would that rely on having parental controls on the computer? Because I can go on it now. It doesn't. Does it know I'm over 18 automatically? I don't know.
It knows that from your Twitter handle.
I don't have a Twitter account. I can just go on it and find it online.
I will need to check that with Twitter. It should be, if you're listed in adult setting, whoever's computer you're using, in order to see any Twitter following, you can't just. I need to just double check that. I think that if you've got a Twitter account, you can see other people's Twitter feeds. So it's whoever's account that you're using on your computer. If you have no account at all, it'll just show you the Twitter you must log in thing. So somebody must be logged into your computer who must be over 18. I
will check how I could do it now, but I'll do it later. Yeah. I think another colleague was managed to do the same.
So it may be somebody else has got an account who uses Twitter on your machine. But Twitter and Instagram certainly have adult profile settings, and we're listed as an adult content site.
Absolutely. But nevertheless, I think in terms of
quite a lot of nudity controls and things on them as well. So your account gets disabled if you go past a certain watershed.
So, but even any other advertising which might be directed at over 18s doesn't necessarily have suggestive images on it, does it? Does it necessarily matter, is what I'm saying, that you can only access it if you're over 18 anyway? Does that really matter? I mean, the fact is, the advertising shouldn't be suggestive in any case, anywhere.
It certainly conforms to all social media standards, otherwise the account gets removed. So there's quite strict guidance on what you're allowed to promote via social media.
I'm thinking about the council's own policy on advertising. Yeah. Okay. That was all of my questions. You're probably pleased to know, but thank you for your very comprehensive answers, both of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Knight. Councillor Garner, do you have any questions you'd like to come with?
Yeah, for me, a couple. One is following on from Councillor Knight's really on the advertising. I know I was on the subcommittee 2 years ago, so your first renewal, where you brought forward the advertising. Obviously that's a lot easier in person where you can bring paper copies. I understand this time it's going to duplicate last year's subcommittee's agreed advertising. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. We pretty much have a generic set of kind of printed media invites, and none of that has changed, so we're still using that same advertising.
So nothing new from what was agreed by the subcommittee at the last renewal.
Nothing new now.
That's right. And I think what Councillor Knight may have been getting at is regarding the Twitter account, which I've been able to have a look at, although I do have an account. So, notwithstanding what you said about being over 18 and things like that, is the advertising on the Twitter account and the imaging used is probably not something a subcommittee would let through on printed materials. So it's just something to think about and something for us to consider as well, perhaps as a subcommittee. So it's I don't know if you managed to have a look at what's on that Twitter account, and if that's an image of mirror image of the Instagram account. I don't think some of those images would be something we'd allow on our not on our printed material, but allow on the printed material that goes through the subcommittee. I don't know if you have a response. If there's no response, you have that's fine. I do have one further question, unless you do have a response.
The response to that was that we did ask about social media. With Leeds' policy on printed material is quite different to other cities, whereby other cities have just got guidance which lays out the stylization and how far you can go with printed media. In terms of social media, all SCVs in Leeds follow a similar kind of trend to what we're doing. In order to see the imagery, you have to be kind of logged on to the account. So you have to find the account. It shouldn't be something that can just come up in a search. You'd have to actually log into our accounts. By doing that, you're kind of accepting that you want to look at it. It wouldn't be something that would come up in a sponsored feed or in something that would be forced upon somebody who wasn't actually looking at it. So you very have to make the conscious step of going to look at it. And I think you'll find that all SCVs in Leeds follow a similar kind of style.
Okay, granted, thank you. And it might be more of a question for Matthew, actually, for entertainment licensing, but are there any new sensitive premises on the map on Appendix F from the last renewal?
Thank you. I would have to compare them to previous year's reports. However, I can confirm that when we're producing these each year to make sure that they are current, there's not many more premises which are changing compared to the ones that were existing. But I can have a look. I'll compare it with the other report. It may take me a couple of minutes and I can always come back to that if that's okay.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
And back to sort of Aaron and Marcus. Again, following on from Councillor Knight's suggestion about the term gentleman's club, and the initial application in the subcommittee there suggested adding that. Obviously, think times have changed. Times change pretty quickly in terms of terminology and accepted terminology. I think, especially recently. Have you any suggestions of alternatives to the term gentleman's club that you'd find appropriate that would still differentiate this as a venue where people can be it's obvious to people that you're not just walking into a regular bar, I suppose. Are there any alternatives that you'd find acceptable as licensees and as owners?
The original wording for this and the original presentation was actually called a Superlux playground, which the word playground was rejected by the committee for obvious playground reasons. And then we came up with Superlux Lounge. And it was, so the first set of documents which I can recircle to the committee did include a number of different options for that. And Superlux Lounge was the one we preferred, but the committee asked us to change that to Gentleman's Lounge for the reasons that they didn't want people walking into it confused in any way. So it was quite clear that you were entering an SCV premises, and so that was very much a restriction placed on us, but certainly wasn't by our choice.
Okay, thank you. That's me, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Garner. I guess at the moment you're closed. Is that right, due to the COVID situation?
That's correct. All SCV premises are not allowed to open currently. So nightclubs and SCVs are the only two remaining licensed areas that are not allowed to trade currently. At this point, we don't know when that will be. We have asked the committee whether we could change our operation style to become more of a lingerie kind of burlesque lounge, and whether that would be something that the licensing would commit to, but that wouldn't really trigger the SCV element of our business. the SEB element is currently prevented under Home Office ruling.
Okay, all right. And I guess in line with any decision that you do make on that, the relevant risk assessments regarding COVID would be circulated and adhered to, I'm guessing, government guidelines and such like.
Absolutely, the inclusion of a SEB in the social distancing is quite confusing for the Home Office, really. I you know, SEBs are actually by regulation are actually socially distanced, and they're quite easy premises socially distanced. So I'm not sure why SEBs were added onto the nightclub appendix. A nightclub obviously has got crowd loading and very different set of circumstances. So I was quite surprised when SEBs were added to that restriction, but needless to say they are, so we need to comply with that.
Okay. So I guess if anybody else has any other further questions.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I'd like to come back to the point that Councillor Garner raised about the sensitive premises and the existing maps for previous renewal applications. I've tried to find last year's one. However, the council's got this habit of deleting any documents that haven't been modified for a certain period in line with the retention policy. So I've not been able to find the ones in my folder from last year. So my advice really would be just to base your determination today on the plan which is included within the report at the moment. That is the current location of sensitive premises in the area. I'm sorry, I can't be more help on that one.
That's fine. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matthew. So if members can indicate if they have any further questions. No. Okay, on that basis then, the subcommittee will now move to a private session where we will deliberate on the application. Could I ask that all parties, including the applicant and their representatives and the licensing officer, remain available should the subcommittee have any additional questions that we want to come back to. And if there are any additional questions, you'll be invited back into the meeting room by the clerk. So we will break out to a breakout room now, please, Andy, to deliberate.
Yep, just to inform everybody that the subcommittee, legal officer and clerk will now move to a private room for discussion, and will return once that discussion's finished. Hopefully this shouldn't take any longer than 10 minutes. Right, Chair, we're ready to recommence.
Great, thanks a lot, Andy. Just pull up. So, yeah, thanks for that. Obviously, it took a bit longer than we anticipated. Thanks for hanging on. Is everybody still there? Yeah. So, in the deliberations, just things that we were sort of minding to mention was to remove the references of fining inside the documentation and policies. Also, the removal of mentioning performances or performers as girls, that reference there, and to try and make the policies more sort of gender neutral. And also a review and probably more detail adding into the training documents that you use, that you have. Obviously, when you explain the training that you do, probably more sort of meat on the bones in the actual policies around that. And then Councillor Garner has a question for either Marcus or Aaron.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you. Just referring back to what we asked about the social media, and obviously your answer seemed quite clear earlier that the other SEVs in Leeds are doing similar. Would you be willing to look at social media content again afresh, you know, and toning some of the imagery down, you know, to match what we'd expect for printed material?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've since the break, I've kind of reviewed some of the Leeds stuff, and it's out of kilter really a bit with what we're doing in Manchester and the other areas. So we need to kind of tighten that up. So we'll make sure that is addressed. Likewise with the policy review of the others, I've already suggested that we do that. Of course, these annual renewals are really good for kind of flagging this, and as you say, the changing moods and style of this. So we should definitely do a full review of the policy documents.
Oh, thank you.
Excellent. Yes, yes. I think that's kind of the answer we were looking for on that one. So on that basis, I think we're happy with the deliberation, and what we are doing on all the subcommittees, where sometimes we would give decisions straight away. What we are doing blanket across all subcommittee decisions is that the decision will be informed within 5 working days of today's meeting. So yeah, thanks everybody for attending today. It kind of concludes our business for today, and yeah, within 5 working days the decision will be sent out to you. If ward members and members of the subcommittee just hang on until the applicants and representatives have left, please.
That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you.
Thank you.